Just thank you so much for joining us as we hear from our Madam Chair, Tangela Johnson, as she discusses living and leaving a legacy. If you've had the honor of meeting Tangela, you know that she's just an extraordinary leader in our community, and we're so honored to have her wrap up our 2021 Power Leadership Study Series. If at any time you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the chat box. I'll be monitoring that. And I know Tangela is going to have some great questions for you throughout. So just let's take the time together to hear from you all. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Kim Shumpert, our fearless leader here at CWLI, to introduce Tangela. Kim?
Good morning, everybody. I see some great names on this call live today. For those of you that might purchase this later, or if you registered and were not able to view it live, you are missed. Know that you're missed, but we are excited to be able to have those of you with us who are live today. So welcome. And it is my great honor to get to introduce someone who has been such a hero to me over this year. When Tangela, so, you know, we have known as an organization that Tangela was going to become our fearless leader for a couple of years. She has been heavily involved with the direction and the strategy of CWLI for a while now. And this has been the year that has culminated in, I would say, her vision. If you don't know already, we have just really catapulted what we are able to do because of her leadership and because of the passion and the vision that she has had for this organization. Personally, I just finished a conversation with a prospective partner who is very interested in one of our new offerings, which is employee resource groups, which is one of Tangela's brain children, I say one of, because she's had so many dreams for CWLI. And we have been extremely lucky to be the beneficiary of those ideas and that strategy behind all of that. And so without much further ado, I would like to introduce Tangela Johnson, who is a corporate culture and leadership development expert, a seasoned consultant, executive coach, dynamic speaker, and author. She's the founder and president of North Georgia Corporate Consulting, a professional development boutique that's helped multi-million-dollar companies across multiple industries for more than 2 decades. Today, Tangela is known as a powerful thought leader and gifted change agent, affectionately referred to as the fixer by her clients. As a keynote speaker and workshop facilitator, you can count on Tangela to deliver actionable steps on relationship re-engineering and interventions that help business owners identify and resolve issues so that they can achieve greater outcomes. Tangela has an undergraduate degree in broadcast news from the University of Georgia. She holds a master's degree in English from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. She is a first-generation college graduate, and I will add, this year, I would say, has been living into her legacy through CWLI, which is why we wanted to bring her to you today. And we are honored to have her here with us to talk about that legacy and to teach us all how we too can enjoy some of that and lean into that a little bit more. Thank you, Tangela. Welcome, and welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Kim. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so the truth of the matter is I'm having a hot flash because I had to drag my luggage out to the car. I'm totally frazzled because I am traveling to Nashville today. I can't wait to take the next 2 weeks off. Not this, well, whenever. I don't even know what day it is, to be honest. So I've been being real honest with you guys. Yeah, so I'm kind of frazzled a little bit. Is anybody else frazzled? End of the year, a lot going on, trying to figure out what the heck, how do I get all of this stuff done and, you know, enjoy the holidays and all of that. So I just wanted to share all the stuff Kim read. I truly appreciate it, but, you know, I'm the type of person that really wants to know, did you put your buggy back in the carousel at Walmart or the grocery store? I mean, I'm that person. I'm more interested in that stuff than the stuff she read, right? So we're just going to have a conversation. It could go anywhere. Not sure exactly where it's going to go. I'm pretty organic. That's the thing about living your legacy. You're on a path. Hopefully you're on a path, but you never really know where that path is going to lead you. Kind of got to be open. I see some wonderful friends there on the call. I see Stephanie Crow. We've known each other for 7, 8 years. I'm a wealthy woman because of her. I believe that it takes all of us to walk this life out, right? And so whatever your legacy is, whatever you want it to be, you're living it right now. I teach Sunday school, and this past Sunday, I was doing a little strategic planning in Sunday school, and there were 3 young folks in there, 2 20-year-olds and 1 21-year-old. And I just asked them, put them on the spot. I said, what are your goals? What give me 3 things that you really want to do next year? Because I told them at the end of the year, I usually take the last 2 weeks off and I reflect, right? I look back over that year and I'm like, okay, did I kill it or did it kill me? Which was it? Where are the gaps? How did I grow? Did I make a difference? Did I invest in somebody else's life? What did I learn? So that's what I do the last 2 weeks of the year. And I ask them, and then I plan for the following year. What is it I want to do in the following year? And so I asked them that question, and they had answers. And so I was very, very proud to hear that they had answers. And so I'll continue that conversation with them next Sunday. And there were older people in the room of all ages because I teach adult Sunday school. But, I'd ask you, and just something for you to think about as we talk these next 20 minutes or so. And then, of course, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your questions. So what is it that you are looking towards in 2022? And then, the other question to that is, what did you do in 2021, right, to prepare you for 2022, for the things that you want to accomplish? So I think we think that legacy is something that's, if you're 75 or 80, then you think about it. Well, it's too late then. It's too late at that point. Your legacy is something you should be thinking about now. And, I live my life in decades. So I actually think about my life in decades, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But I'm going to ask you a question. It's kind of a crazy question I started asking people about 3 years ago. And whenever I do introductions with a new client or whatever, and I work primarily with leaders, I'll ask them this question. What was your very first paying job? Okay, where you got a W-2. I'm not talking about chores at the house. Your very first paying job, okay? And put it in the chat because I'd love to see what that job was. And then the second part of that question, what did you learn that you still use today? Very first paying job. Now, what did you learn that you still use today? Emily Ramsey, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean. That is funny. That is funny. Some of the most interesting ones I've heard drug runner, right? Their uncle sold drugs, and this person was a drug runner at like 8 or 9 years old. Interestingly enough, they became an entrepreneur, built a multi-million-dollar company and sold it. Another person, they were, let's see. Oh, I'm seeing all kinds of things. Wow. Love it, love it, love it. Another CEO who happens to be a woman, her brother sold newspapers, and when the people wouldn't pay, he would make her, because she was a cute little girl, go up and ask for the money. Okay. This person is also a serial entrepreneur who built a $10 million company and sold it. All right. So I've heard all kinds of stories, and I started to see a pattern that the thing you learned in your youth, believe it or not, still has an impact on who you are today. And we don't think about that. We don't think about that. So somebody said they didn't get a W-2, but they were a caregiver at a home daycare. Failed to plan, plan to fail. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So I want you to kind of meditate on that a little bit, right? Think about that very first job. Think about all the things that you learned from that and that you still use today, because they are probably part of your value system. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully I'll do this right. Let's see. Yep. I think I have it figured out here. And then I can get it to, yep, there we go. Okay, so hopefully, Sharia, can you see it? If you can see it, everybody can see it. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to go through this PowerPoint relatively quickly. And some of you who know me know some of this stuff because you've seen it before. I mean, I kind of preach the same thing all the time anyway. So hope I don't bore anybody, but this is a book that I wrote. It's called Relaxed Power: How to Live a Purpose, Not Perfect Life. And writing the book was on my bucket list. Actually, when I wrote it in 2018, I just kind of finished it, put it in the closet, forgot about it. And then around 2019, I pulled it out and said, you know, maybe I should look at self-publishing this. So again, and it really talks about my own journey, probably my own legacy. But the one thing that I've always been, I think, that is so important is you have to be curious about you, right? I don't think you know everything about who you are. You are constantly discovering, or you should constantly be discovering. You need to be a seeker of yourself. And I think sometimes as women, we underestimate the value of carving out time to reflect, to look inward, and all of those things. So the first advice I would give you in terms of your legacy is be curious about you. What is it that you don't know about you or you haven't discovered, right? William Barclay says that there are two great days in a person's life: the day we're born and the day we discover why. Very powerful. You know, my dad, I'm a daddy's girl. Love my mom, of course, but my dad and I are very, very close. And sometimes when women are very close to their dad, they have lots of confidence because the father gives you permission to be great. So the thing about my dad, he would always ask me questions. He would never give me answers to anything, always. And so when I was about 14, I said, well, you know, Daddy, I was a little frustrated. I asked him a question. He asked me a question. And I said, why is it that when I ask you a question, you ask me a question instead of giving me the answers? And he said, you know, two reasons. One, I want you to think for yourself. And two, I want you to own your own decisions. So he's 79 and I'm 53. And guess what? He still asks me very important questions. So I think, and they're tough questions sometimes. I think you have to ask yourself the tough questions as you walk this journey out. I was talking to a client and they were telling me about another consultant that wants to meet me. And this client's in Alabama. And the person said, the client said, well, I think he wants to see what the competition looks like, you know, and I laughed because I don't have competition, right? The only competition I have is me. As long as I'm asking myself the hard questions, as long as I'm growing, I'm pretty hard to beat, right? So the minute I take myself off of, or take my eyes off, you know, how Tangela can be the best and how she can bring value to the world, the minute I do that, I lose my edge. So I said, yeah, I'd love to meet with that person because I could care less, because I don't really, like I said, I don't have competition. As long as I continuously evolve like Dolly Parton, she has no competition, right? Love that lady. Sometimes we spend too much time worrying about other people and who's on Facebook, which I'm not even on Facebook. I hate social media, but you know, we're too concerned about those external things, things that we really can't control. But what you can control is your inner self, right? And the boss of a woman that you can become. So get on the legacy path. I'm assuming because you're on this call, you're already on that path anyway. And so I really appreciate you guys spending time to just kind of hang out for a few minutes and talk about this important topic. You know, I think people underestimate or they don't understand really what joy is. The more you understand you, the more joy you have. And joy is really knowing, okay? Joy is that self-knowing. Happiness, you know, that's temporary. That's kind of a having something, a new pair of shoes, a purse or whatever, right? The case may be. But true joy comes from a sense of centeredness, a sense of understanding what you bring to the world and walking in that. Now, I started out this call by saying I'm a little frazzled today, and that's true. But I'm still joyful, right? I still like who I am. I still am very focused on what I can bring to the world, what I'll do tomorrow. That's exciting to me. So that's my foundation. And that's also the thing from which I pivot on, right? And pivot is not necessarily moving, you know, your whole everything. Pivot is you're anchored in your vision, your self-vision, whatever that is. And then when things happen, right, you might have to adjust or pivot a little bit, but you're still anchored on that solid foundation of you understanding you and you understanding what you bring to the world. That doesn't change. You can take me to Switzerland, you can take me to China. I'm still bringing the same thing to the world. That is my legacy. And my calling, my purpose in life is to help people gain the wisdom they need, right? So they can discover their greatness, so they can walk in their power. That's what I do every day, all day. That's what I do personally. That's what I do professionally. You may call it consulting or other things, but that's what I do. You know, my core gifts are that of a teacher, first and foremost, and then a strategist, right? So that is my foundation. That's the thing that I pivot on. I constantly have to challenge myself to gain more mastery in those areas. So, you know, you never arrive. You never arrive. We're always on that journey. So I just mentioned my gifts and talents. The one thing that I would encourage you to do that probably, again, anchors your legacy is figuring out what you bring to the world, right? Your gifts and your talents, those foundational things. Sometimes it's hard for us to give it a name. Sometimes when I ask that question, people will say, oh, I'm a people person. Need you to be more specific than that, right? What is it that people ask you to do every day? They just ask you, oh, could you help me with that? Could you help me with this? That's a hint, because typically we need other people to discover our gifts, right? Because they're gonna use it as much as we are. And the thing that energizes you, you know, what do you just get joy from? Somebody asks you to do it at 2 a.m, you'd be a little tired. I'm sorry, did I lose? You guys still hear me? Okay, but if they ask you to do it at 2 a.m, you'd be happy to do it, right? What is that thing? What is that thing? Very important, because that's a gift that you'll give to the world. I think I said I'm teaching Sunday school, but I didn't tell you really what the topic. The last 3 Sundays I've taught on wisdom. And because I am a teacher at my core, I'm always trying to come up with definitions, okay? Because a definition is a foundation. If we can name a thing, if we can define it, then we can grow from that point and learn from that point. So in my mind, wisdom is revelation knowledge that produces change or growth, okay? So sometimes, ladies, we are so trying to gain all the knowledge, right? And you can gain all that knowledge, but to what end, right? So what does that knowledge reveal to you that's usable? What does that knowledge reveal to you that's usable in your day-to-day? So wisdom, in my mind, is knowledge that's actually, that produces an outcome, right? And I'm a person, I love books. As a matter of fact, we're building a house. I'm having a library in my house. It's always been my dream, and it'll have books everywhere. But seeking that knowledge, that one thing that changes everything for you, that is a pursuit. It may be in a book, it may be an experience, It may be in a conversation with someone else, but that's what you're looking for. You're really looking for wisdom. Timing is everything, ladies. Timing is everything. So I'm going to talk to you about patterns that I've seen over the last 15 years, or we could say 53 years, really, because I'm always paying attention to humanity. But there are patterns and stages of life that I think we need to be aware of. And you may or may not agree with me on these, but after talking to, a few thousand people, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, okay? So when you engage in a new activity, a new role, let's say a new position at work, if you will, or you get, you get a promotion, there are numbers that, even though we don't pay attention to them, these patterns, these cycles, they still exist. And once I start talking about them, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the number 2, it will take you 2 years of hard work in a new role, a new job, a new position, a new anything to have a clue. So you want to go in 6 months, you want to have it all figured out, and you got your 90-day plan and blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth of the matter is you don't even know enough yet. And I don't care how brilliant you are, you don't know enough yet to truly be effective. So it takes you 2 years. The 3rd year, you kind of have clarity, right? You're like, okay, so you work really hard those first 2. You bump your head a few times, but you learn. That 3rd year, you have clarity and you're more mature, right? 5 is the number of mastery or grace. Mastery simply means that I have mastered the fundamentals, okay? I have grown in those fundamentals. I've added layer upon layer, knowledge upon knowledge through my experiences, through my insight. So about the 5th year of whatever it is, business, you start a new business, you've mastered that business, okay? When I work with organizations on changing their culture, I tell them it's going to take you 5 years. And that's providing you do the right things in the first 2 and 3 years, okay? 7 is a number of completion or perfection. It's sort of the end of a cycle. Some of you have stayed in jobs way too long, right? You're just holding on. You're holding on to something that does not allow you to grow, that doesn't feed your soul, doesn't feed your mind, and you're stagnant. I see it all the time. And then, sometimes clients will ask me to coach. And one of the first things I ask are these numbers. How long have you been in that role? Because you become, you're not effective anymore in that job. So, and you don't know why, and you're frustrated and you're sad and you're mad, and then it's everybody else's fault. But no, it's actually you, because remember what I said, you've got to ask yourself the tough questions, because nobody can do that for you. And then 8 is the number of new beginnings, right? Which we all love, So I want you to think about these numbers. One of the things you can do is look back over your career, look at your present position that you're in, leadership role that you're in, and say, where am I on that cycle? Okay. And I will give time for you guys to ask me about this. The other question that I ask a lot is, how old are you? I have never had anybody tell me, why are you asking me that? People just answer that question and we just keep it moving. I don't know how HR feels about it, but whatever. So I said to you earlier that I live my life in decades. And when I talked to the 20-year-olds this past Sunday, I told them the same thing. I said, before you know it, you'll be 30, and then you'll be 40. In 20 minutes, you'll be 40, right? So in your 20s, you need to do the right things. And what that means is you should be exploring, gathering experiences, learning as much as you can. The 20s are about experience and exploration. That's what should happen in that decade. If you're wasting your time, if you have grandchildren or children and they're just kind of floating along, that's not the time to float. That's the time when you're strong in your body, you have lots of energy. My goal these days is I love to take a nap, but I just doesn't say I wanted to take a nap Sunday, didn't happen, right? But when you're 20, you have all that energy, 25, whatever, that's the time you should experience and explore. The 30s. If you experience and explore in your 20s, then around 28, you will feel like, okay, I'm a little tired of all of this. I want to be centered. In your 30s, you're looking for purpose and passion. That is a decade where you have a sense of self, probably walking into that space. And it's very, very powerful. It's very invigorating. I remember my 30s. Your 40s, a little bit different. 40s are about balance and boundaries. I'll be honest, I've seen women get divorced in their 40s because you're just not putting up with crap anymore, right? And so you're like, hey, I'm over it. The kids are maybe almost grown. You start to get rid of things that no longer feed you. And maybe they didn't feed you in the beginning, right? But they were just things you had to do. I remember in my 40s, I think I've been on about 15 boards. I don't know what I was thinking. But in my 40s, I said, you know, what am I doing? What am I doing to myself? How am I spending my time? This is ridiculous. So I sent out some letters of resignation from boards once I figured that out. But your 40s are about that adjustment, right? And there are weights that you carry that you need to get rid of in your 40s and put boundaries around your energy. Put boundaries around what you say yes to, right? Because you're halfway through the game and you really have to focus, what is my legacy, right? How do I want to spend my time and my energy? What feeds me? What brings me joy? So 40s are really, really pivotal, important times. And then the 50s, which I'm experiencing now, they're about empowerment and enlightenment. They really are. You just really anchor who you are. If you walk through the other stages appropriately, if you've gotten rid of things that no longer need to be a part of your life. And so I'll be honest, I feel very empowered. I'm probably more direct than I've ever been with people. Somebody asked me to do something a couple of days ago and to sign my name to support them in something. I said, I don't sign things or support things I don't understand. I'm not saying that I won't do it. I don't understand it. I'm not doing it at this point. And they said, I respect that. And I said, I appreciate it, but I just don't. I'm moving quickly. It's funny. I'm more tired. I don't have the physical energy. I mean, I work out and do all those things, but I am moving at a whole different pace, at a whole different level in my 50s. Okay. And I think that's because I feel free to be who I am. The 60s are about acceptance and legacy. I'm not there yet, but I've talked to a lot of folks in their 60s to confirm and affirm my thinking around the 60s. And I remember this one woman who said, I've accepted the good, the bad, and the ugly, where I failed, where I won, and it's all okay. It's just really okay. And then in theory, you should really be solid in your career, and you should truly be investing in other people, other women, your family. That's what you should be doing in your 60s. And you can do that if you're free and you're accepting of who you are at your core, and the decisions you made or the ones you didn't make, there's a calm and a peace that comes with that. And so not 60 yet, but that is my expectation in that decade. So that's as far as I've gotten. I'm sure maybe in another few years, I'll know more about the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But right now, the 60s. I said earlier, I talked to you a little bit about mastery and maturity. That's kind of the goal, right? When we're talking about legacy, what is it that I'm a master of? And I don't care if you're 20 or 30 or 40, that really is your pursuit, because the thing that you can master is also the thing that you bring to the world. That's your gift to the world. So mastery is really, really important. And maturity, maturity has nothing to do with age. It has to do with your mindset. It's a state of mind. I don't want to be, 53 and out wearing a tube top and, Daisy Dukes. That's inappropriate, right? Right? It might be inappropriate anyway, but it's certainly inappropriate for me. But it's kind of similar in your mind, right? And what is it that you should be doing mentally, spiritually, emotionally at this stage in your life, right? And I know I'm going through this quickly, but a question I asked is, do you understand your legacy up to this point? Can you look back and say, okay, this is what I've been able to do. This has been important to me. This is where I've invested my time and my energy and myself and in the world and my space and my community, and being able to look back and say, okay, yeah, I'm on track. And then be able to look forward to shape that legacy, that narrative is super important. I mentioned the book to you. I am working on a masterclass, and I will tell you that I've been working on it all year, actually. But it is really about asking yourself the right questions. And so I go through different stages and different conversations that you should be having with yourself. History for me. And then my dear friend who's on the call, Stephanie Crow, the woman behind my wealth, is we did some podcasts earlier in the year, and they're pretty fun. They tell about our relationship and really how we supported each other. So there is one other thing that I'm going to share with you all, and because I want to get to your questions. Let's see if this works. Okay, can you see that ages and stages of life grid there? If you can, please not, because I can't see. Okay, good. All right, so this I actually created after the book, sometimes earlier this year. And I just want to say this to you guys. When you carve out time for yourself and give your brain a rest, it's amazing what you can come up with. But because we don't have much margin in our life and we're just constantly on the run, where we don't know, we just don't carve out time for our creativity. So this came about after the book, and it will be in the masterclass, but I wanted to share it with you. I love numbers having to do with time and money. I do. I've been in business 22 years, just kind of have a sense of time. Those two things have always been important to me. Now, I can't remember phone numbers, addresses, that kind of stuff, but money and time. If you ever get behind me in the grocery store and something's not right, just move to another line, because until we get the right price, we're not moving. So anyway, I came up with this and I thought it was kind of cool. I mentioned to you the different ages and stages, right? And then I mentioned to you the different, how many years it'll take you to do X, Y, and Z. So this is a culmination of the two of those. So I don't know if you can see, but let's just say you're 50, I'm 53, all right? I promise you, 50s are about empowerment and enlightenment. 3 is a number of maturity and clarity. Probably, so I would say about a week ago, I got real clarity on what I'm really supposed to focus on these next, at least for 2022, right? I've been working really hard these last 2 years, and I'll be honest, a lot of confusion on my end, not necessarily knowing, what is it supposed to look like, but just recently, I have clarity. So I have a lot of clarity about the next phase, the rest of the 50s for me. So if you look at kind of where you are, it maybe will give you an idea of, if you're let's say 42, you're probably kind of in limbo a little bit. You've been working real hard, a little bit confused, sometimes frustrated, but I'll bet you next year when you turn 43, at some point, you will have a lot more clarity about the decade that you're in. If you are 67, you're probably completing something in your life and you're looking towards the next thing at 68. So I just wanted to share that little bit with you. Again, I'm going to put it in the masterclass. It wasn't part of the book. It's just something I developed earlier this year. I think I was actually on vacation and just had some quiet time to do that. So I'm going to stop my share. I know I have said a lot. Okay. And I would love to
Hey, Tangela.
entertain your questions. Yes.
Will you talk a little bit about, you've talked about kind of like your evolution. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your money evolution
Oh God.
by these decades?
She's always bringing up money. Okay. So,
But I think it's really important because as we navigate, our finances are integral to all of this.
yeah, you're absolutely right. So in my 20s, I was broke. Okay. That would be A. Didn't know what I was doing with money. Money is not intuitive for most people. I grew up middle class. My dad is excellent with money, but he didn't teach us, right? And so when you don't teach people stuff, they make it up. They got different versions, right? So anyway, and I always knew that I wanted to own my own business. So I think I was at 28, I just told my husband I was quitting my job and I was going to start this business. He had just started his new job. So I really didn't count the costs. I really didn't pay attention. So when I was about 32, had my daughter, had really replaced my corporate income. So I was on track, but not where I wanted to be. So didn't know a lot about what it would take to build wealth, but knew that I wanted to be wealthy. And Stephanie, I actually stalked her now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, can't remember. I had gotten stable, of course, and didn't have the debt and all that kind of stuff, paid off credit card bills. I knew those Dave Ramsey things. So we did those things, okay? So when I met Stephanie, I kind of had that mindset. Again, as I said earlier, you have to constantly ask yourself the tough questions and constantly try and get the answers to those. So somebody had an event, Stephanie was on the panel. I said, that lady looks like she's gifted and she's non-judgmental and she knows what she's talking about. And so she was speaking at a CWLI event and it was a smaller event. And so I signed up for the event. Everybody left the class. I talked to her. I said, hey, I need some help or something. I don't really remember. She gave me her card, went to the bank and met with her. And somehow we struck up a friendship. And it was funny because she was at a point in her career where she wanted to, go out on her own. And so we really helped each other. But she told me the things that I needed to do at the time. I was releasing an office building. Okay. And she said, and we're just talking, she's like, oh, God, just buy the building. And I'm like, what? Buy the building? Okay. All righty then. How in the heck am I supposed to do that? Long story short, got an SBA loan. It was easy, bought the building. As a matter of fact, I just sold the building this year for double for what I paid for it. Set a new record on the block. Just saying. So anyway, there's a lot to that story, but I want to say really in my 40s, I got super serious about learning about finances, right? And what it would take to build wealth. And I bought properties. I love real estate. So I bought properties along the way, sold those, different things. But you're right, there is an alignment. I really hadn't thought about that with your age and your money. That's probably a whole class, Stephanie, age and money, where you should be. So hopefully that answers it. And oh yeah, my daughter. So I'm already teaching her. She's phenomenal. Stephanie's going to work with her. She's 20. I expect her to fully to be a millionaire, maybe by the time she's 35, and in her head, she already is. So.
Hey, Tangela, you were instrumental in me accepting that I might need to step back from money to realize my biggest purpose. I grew up in finance and I didn't come from money and, getting a paycheck was important like it is with most of us. And I'd kind of gotten on this employee track of, I've just got to make the most money and I've got to get the next promotion. I've got to get the next bonus. And I think when Tangela entered my life, she reconfigured things. She assessed it quickly to say, if you're going to live your purpose and your higher calling and do the things that God has meant for you to do, you might need to make some short-term financial sacrifices. but there will be long-term rewards for you. And that was just an equation that I wasn't trained to do. It wasn't, you know, I was doing short math, get the paycheck, get the paycheck, get the paycheck.
That's interesting. I guess for me, it's been so normal for so long to, maybe I live on the edge. I don't really think about it. But one of the things I want to say to all of you, you have to take risks. I'm sorry. And if you don't, it's not going to happen for you. And I don't mean to be negative. That's just a reality of life. We are meant to take risks. So that year 7, that year between 5 and 7, you got to do something. I don't know what the something is, but you've got to do something, whether it's a promotion, whether it's challenging yourself, side hustle, growing, learning. You're supposed to do something. You're supposed to take risks, and not to, don't want to know what anybody's spiritual background is or whatever, but I'm telling you, you've got to have some faith in something on this earth, or you're just going to live sort of a blah, blah, settle for angry life. And there are times when you have to take risks. And, my thing is, if it won't kill me, I'll probably, I'm strong enough, I'll probably, come out okay. So fear, I came up with the definition. I taught on fear in Sunday school. Fear is opposition, real or imagined. So if a bear was to fly through this door right now, that's a real threat, right? That's a real threat. But most of our fears are up here. It's our imagination. It's this crazy stuff you tell yourself that has no place. And so you have to kind of set yourself up to know that, yeah, we're all going to have fear at different times, but have a strategy in place for combating that fear. And that's that's what I do. I'm just like, what's the plan? I had to speak to a group of men, 95% men, at a conference, about 500 a few weeks ago, and my PowerPoint didn't work right. Oh my God. So I'm on stage, I'm freaking on the inside. But then I had to say, you've done this kind of stuff a million times, right? Just kill it. And so I said, well, I'm going to tell you guys a story. And that's how I started. It was great. It was wonderful. They figured out the PowerPoint thing. So this stuff happens to all of us in real time. But what are you going to do? You're going to just crumple and cry and fall over? No, it's just part of life. So knowing that, integrating that, and then, taking a stand in whatever area you need to take a stand in, take a risk, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Hey, Tangela, you're one of the most talented people in identifying what's within your control and what's outside your control. And I think the time that Tangela entered my life, I still thought I had control over things I did not. I thought I could convince people to get on my bus and give me the support I needed to get where I needed to go. And Tangela was like one of those truth tellers. She wasn't giving me cookies and a bedtime story. And it was sort of like it helped me, as a female leader, figure out I don't have control over that. And I could burn a lot of time, wasted effort, waiting for it to come into the thing that I need. And she's like, you can't control that. That's about them. This is about you. What are you going to do? Will you talk through that? Like, just like personal control?
Yeah, I think for me, it's all about energy. How do I spend my energy? I have a limited supply. So the things that I know I can change, that I know I can do something about, those are the things that I work on. Things that I cannot change, I kind of don't, right? And that includes people. If I'm coaching someone, if I'm working with a client, yeah, I'm going to give it 110%. I'm going to give you everything I have. But my job in life is not to change anybody. Matter of fact, you don't even have that power. So that would be A, right? Even if you gave birth to them, you still don't have that power, right? Nor should you. So one of the things that I really try and do, I always try and speak my truth to people. Whatever it is we need to talk about, We're going to talk about, I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to try and always come from a place of love. But at the end of the day, I'm going to spend my energy doing the things that I need to do that I can control. And so for me, I don't want to say it's just kind of black and white, but it is, because what happens to us, especially women, we start to ruminate on these things, and then they escalate and they get bigger. And then we create negative emotions, resentment. Well, I worked so hard last year. Nobody cares. They don't care. Okay. So they just don't care. And I don't care how hard you work. The other thing I see with women is we are waiting on somebody to tell us to notice how great we are. Oh my God, really? Is that what you're waiting on? Somebody to come and notice how great you are? I think you better notice it first, and then you let them know, right? Because you could wait 50 years on somebody to come and tell you, as far as employment is concerned, and you still don't get the accolades that you feel like you deserve. So, you may need to move positions or go to another company where you can be appreciated, or whatever the case may be. But you have to know, that's what I said earlier about joy. You've got to know at your core who you are and what value you bring. And then you can share that with the world. And not everybody's going to appreciate it. I had somebody do something crazy to me this week, and I'm like, wow, that was crazy. But it's just, I don't hate the person. I know they're just kind of in a weird space. I can't control that. So I'm just moving forward. Don't take ownership. Don't take on those things that are not yours to take on. Somebody else, a question. Stephanie and I can talk all day. That's we do. We went to lunch a couple of weeks ago, and we turned out Tony's, didn't we?
Hey, Tangela, I have a question.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of this work recently, but what would you tell somebody who is trying to figure out what they are a master of? How do you help them, or how would you suggest they dig in to figure out what that is?
Okay. So the first way to figure it out is, what are people asking you to do all the time? That's A. Because people are asking you to do a certain thing all the time because they enjoy it, they grow from it, they benefit from it in some way. That's at work, that's in the community, that's your family. Somebody's always asking you to do the thing. So that's the first place I would start. Second thing I would do is go back to my childhood. I started tutoring when I was 12 at the library. Before that, I would go to the library all the time so I could get the little certificates in the summer for reading the most books. Okay. So there's a hint in your childhood as to what the thing is. All right. And then the other one is pay attention to what energizes you, what just kind of makes you excited and happy. 10 minutes before I got on this call, I said I was dragging luggage out to my car. I was flustered, whatever. But then I get on this call and I've actually forgotten about that because I love to do this. It just feeds my soul. So it is unlikely that you will flip a switch and then you're like, oh, that's the thing. That too is a process, and it's part of your legacy. If you haven't nailed it yet, be in pursuit of it, and you will eventually, right? Some of you have more experience than others. Some of you are younger, you're still trying to figure it out. Some of you are like, yeah, that's the thing. The other thing that's so important is to give it a name, okay? Whatever it is, give it a name. Because if you can give it a name, then you can start to nurture it, right? To work on it. Once I figured out, and it was in my 30s, that I was a pretty good teacher. And to be honest, I taught at Dalton State College. That very first class, half of the class dropped. So apparently, Angela didn't know what she was doing. Okay. Look, I wanted to drop, but I was teaching. And I just, I'm not a quitter. But I did want to drop. And then they called me to teach again. And I was like, these people must be desperate. However, I figured out a way to teach, and it was English writing. So I figured out a way to teach it, a mathematical way to teach it. And then I realized, okay, maybe this is my thing. But I'm going to tell you, you're not always going to be perfect at it, but eventually you gain that mastery. Mastery doesn't mean perfection. It just means you're kind of a boss at what you do. You know what it is. That's what you bring to the world. So giving it a name, knowing that just because it doesn't work out like you thought the first time, don't dismiss it as not your gift.
Thanks, Tangela. I love that. I'm just going to add one thing. I met with an Ayurvedic lifestyle expert at my husband's yoga studio, and he called it. He said, "It's your dharma, I guess, is your purpose." He asked me, "What are you doing when you're doing anything else?" And I'm like, "What is he saying? What does that even mean?" I've had to say it like. So say it. Say it to yourself. What am I doing when I'm doing anything else? When I'm working, when I'm playing, when I'm entertaining, when I'm relaxing. What do you naturally do? What are you doing? You're teaching, maybe.
That's right. That's what I always do.
That's right.
So, and usually it's about the same stuff. It's about purpose. It's about blah. Whether it's corporate, it doesn't matter. So I saw this preacher years ago at a conference, and he said, I teach on the same, he was like 75. He said, I teach on the same sermon, same thing all the time. And it was, for him, it was faith. So that's it. It's a thing that you're doing all the time. That's all I think about. It's just, yeah. So that's another great way to kind of figure out what your gifts are. And gifts and purpose are different, just so we know. The gift is the thing. The purpose really is a why. So I'm a teacher, but you would never want me teaching elementary school kids. Not gonna work. They're gonna fire me first day. I'm not wired for that. So yeah, as a matter of fact, they kicked me out of PTA. They did. It was, yeah, I won't even talk about it. But anyway, so yeah. Kim, were you gonna say?
Yes, I've been so patient. Okay, so I'll lower my hand now. So I want to know what part of you is your daughter taking out into the world?
When she was younger, and I figured out that she hated school, but she's in college now, we focused on life skills and we focused on her understanding her gifts, right? And at 20, believe it or not, she's pretty clear on it. And I think that's awesome. So she's actually my little experiment, right? So, because I want to see if you can know sooner. And so she's my little experiment. But I think what I would love for her to take to the world is her entrepreneurship. She's had 3 businesses since she was 8. And even though she told me, I don't know, she's in school, that she didn't want to own her own business, I'm like, ha, 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 ha. We'll see about that, right? So she is, I don't know, I think she has that natural talent, that natural business savviness, but because I'm her mom, maybe she didn't really want to embrace it, but I think she is now, even more so. So that's the one thing. And she's a creative, more like her dad. I'm not creative like they are. They're like music, art, those kind of folks. So.
Great answer. That's a much better answer than what my children will be taking out into the world. It's all still a crapshoot at this point, but my children are going to be taking a lot of stubbornness probably. We're just going to hope the world kind of molds it for them.
Love it. Ladies, other questions, please. I love questions. I don't know. I'm not even looking at the time. We have like 6 minutes. Look, my daughter just called me. We talk every day.
Me and Kayla, we're on the same page.
Sorry, my camera's not on, my internet's not very strong, but how do you think our living longer is going to affect these stages? Do you think that we'll go through multiple cycles of multiple gifts? Do you think that we'll end up kind of drawing out the stages? I know that millennials are overanalyzed for the way that we are growing up too quickly and not quickly enough simultaneously. So I'm curious, as we live to be 200 years old instead of 100 years old, how do you think the ages and stages will evolve?
So that's interesting. So first of all, I'm actually 35, not 53. So I'm a millennial. I really consider myself to think probably more like a millennial. You guys wanted to, change the world, define your purpose, create your own destiny. So that's really, I remember distinctly being 28 and in pursuit of all of that. And I think I did it, right? So, I don't have an answer to that. I think my agreement with God is I'm here till I'm 93. And if I'm no longer relevant, I have no interest in being here. So I think, and this is how I view life, and this is why I love Dolly Parton, because she continues to reinvent herself, and evolve. I think you're meant to grow and evolve, no matter how old you are. You can never know everything. You can never be everything. It is that pursuit, and for me, that's how I see a well-lived life. And living a life of legacy, quite frankly, is extremely powerful because you're not so in your head. You're always in pursuit of the best for the people around you, and therefore you want to be your best. So I work out with a personal trainer not because I like it. I don't like it, y'all, but I want to be healthy. I want to be healthy enough to live a powerful life. So that is kind of a legacy mindset. I don't know that I want to be 200, to be honest. I just don't, my knees hurt now, so I can imagine what they feel like if at 200. But I did talk to a friend of mine. This is a few years ago. We had dinner, and she was in her early 80s at the time. And she said something to me very powerful. She said, Tangela, I'm still the same person on the inside, right? She said, the body, that can trip out sometimes, but I am still the same person. And I haven't forgotten that. That made a lot of sense to me. So the person you're developing now, that spirit, that soul, that mind, that's the power piece. This body, it does crazy stuff, right? So that may not have answered your question, but that's kind of my approach to it.
We're at a link here. Just wanted to say thank you so much, Tangela. We loved hearing your truth, your transparency around living and leaving a legacy for yourself. I think it's pretty accurate to say that it's more powerful to live a healthy life, quality over quantity, right?
Yes.
Yes. Anyways, well, I put in the chat a survey. If you guys wouldn't mind just taking it, we'd love to hear your feedback so we can improve our programming. But yeah, just thank you so much for joining us today. We are officially, this is wrapping our 2021 programming. So we're really looking forward to just another robust year of curriculum next year. So stay tuned